Welcome to the Value Builder Podcast, where we focus on real estate with a value-add mindset. Real strategies, real operators, real outcomes. Let's dive in.
All right, welcome Value Builder community. So today I have a special guest, Chris Hershberger. He is Olympic Taekwondo coach who coach athletes to a number of national championships and numerous international titles over 20 years. He has been actually my coach as well for over a year now. We've met in Mansfield where we bought Ontario Center, it's a mall, and Chris was introduced to us as one of the community leaders. And of course, we always want to meet community leaders, and he's one of the shining stars over there. We met, and from the first meeting, we hit it off, and we decided to work. So we've been working for over a year. And Chris has amazing story. Also, at the time when we met, I was hitting my mid-40s, and who can relate to that? Your bodies a lot of times started a little breaking down. I was myself considered an athlete. Playing rugby and doing triathlons for a number of years. And Chris introduced me his philosophy. He's like, let's call it Chris Technology, which we'll dive in deeper into it, which sits around a lot about longevity, vitality, energy, which we'll dive into today. So I'm really excited to have you on the show today. And Chris, welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me. This is an opportunity not only to just share my story, my philosophies in wellness and longevity, but also I look at it as an opportunity to, learn more about you. I've been working with you for a year, but this is a different environment. You're asking me the questions now, and I love it.
I'm going to be asking questions,
different.
keeping you accountable.
That's right. It's like role reversal, and I'm loving it. So I love everything that you've been doing, Saul, and real estate and business. You're an inspirational entrepreneur. Obviously, I've told you many times, I enjoy your energy. You have this captivating energy about you. And I think from the moment that I met you the first time when we went to dinner, I was like, I need to get to know this guy even before you contacted me about working with you. Yeah.
That's great to know, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
So, Chris, let's dive in first into your story. So, how did you get in Olympic Taekwondo coaching? And maybe you can even take us prior to that when you became an Olympic athlete. How did it all happen in Mansfield?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, I started in the martial arts when I was 7 years old. Right. And I lived in a very, very violent neighborhood. It was, ghetto. I know people probably think, what do you mean in Mansfield? But we definitely have a smaller version of some of the bigger cities. And it was very violent. I had been stabbed and, shot at and all these things. And I thought, I should probably learn how to defend myself. And I had that realization early on. And I was just very lucky because the YMCA that was just up the street from where I lived had two of the best martial artists in the entire country. And it was just luck. It was, the universe putting them in my path. And fast forward, I became an junior Olympic Taekwondo athlete and was very successful, traveled many places as a teenager that I never would have been able to visit, had I been on the path and trajectory that I was on prior to. And I became an athlete. I spent some time training at the Olympic Training Center, traveled the world. At the time when I was an athlete, it was not yet a full Olympic sport. Taekwondo wasn't. So I transitioned into the coaching side after I stopped competing and spent a lot of time developing athletes. But in that time, I also became a certified trainer, started getting educated in the world of exercise physiology. I became a director of a major YMCA fitness center. I kind of had this accumulated knowledge all in the world of wellness, and it equipped me with the position of basically transforming lifestyles. That's what I learned, whether it be a world-class athlete. I've worked with NFL players, NBA players, Olympic level athletes, the whole gambit. And you would be shocked how similar their drives and desires are to entrepreneurs because we're all striving and striving and striving.
Yeah, that's awesome. So let's probably dive into this. So building elite performers for 20 years, so national champions, Olympic athletes. So what really separates champions from everyone else? You probably had a number of them, right?
That's a great question.
Yeah,
absolutely. I've had 32 national championship titles that I've coached and 17 international medals, including world championships. All of those athletes, so I'll tell you this, all of them want to be gold medalists and they want to be world champions and all this. There isn't a lack of desire whatsoever
Hmm.
with athletes. The difference is being self-aware in the moment. That is the key. That is the big differentiating factor with many of the athletes that I work with, because you can say I'm self-aware, and people say that all the time. "Man, build your self-awareness," but being self-aware in the moment is a very difficult skill set to hone, because you got to be able to pause and be very present and understand what you're doing in that moment. So let me give you an example.
Yeah, I was going to ask.
Yeah. I can ask a good athlete, "Hey, what did you think about that workout?" And they'll tell me, "Oh, it was tough here. I should have done this. I should have done that." I can stop a great athlete in the middle of the workout and say, "What do you think?" And they'll give me a summary of what's going on. "I think I should be doing this. I think I feel this. I'm doing that." That's being self aware in the moment. That's what separates the wannabe champions with the champions, among many other things. But I think that's the catalyst that allows them to really grow. Because if you're self aware in the moment, then you're able to make adjustments in the moment. And that's huge. If you
Mm,
think about any of the great athletes in the world, they're the ones that made adjustments in crucial moments of their performance. That's huge. It's easier to make adjustments after, when you play that Monday morning quarterback and say, "Yeah, I should have done this. I should have done that." But when you're making adjustments in real time, game changer, big time. Now, how does that equate to business? You know that when you're negotiating in real time and you've got these big deals that are happening and you're able to be self aware enough to say, "You know what, I got to pivot here, or I got to make this adjustment." That's what separates the big high performing entrepreneurs versus the average ones.
that's interesting. Yeah, because really my first thought for some reason will be, yeah, that's definitely insatiable desire to be number one, not to lose, or it could have been like maniacal discipline. No, actually, it's being able to see what's going on from a third
Absolutely. Being
from the
aware.
warden's perspective. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Being aware, because the things that you just said, being disciplined, being maniacal about wanting to win, there
Hmm.
are millions of those people out there. And
Hmm.
obviously, there aren't millions of champions. So, what separates those people from the ones that are actually winning? In my opinion, it's that self awareness in present time, because they're able to make those adjustments. So, when you're at that high level, and this applies to entrepreneurship, the people that can be nuanced with their present mindedness are the ones that are making the right adjustments,
Oh,
usually.
that's interesting. Wow, I bet it was really rewarding to see when you put your work and you see those athletes become champions. And at the same time, I think the training champions, you have also perhaps too to have some different philosophy or different way of training them. So maybe can you touch on your philosophy of really coaching those champions, right? Not your
Absolutely. Yeah.
traditional people want to lose 20 pounds, but
Right.
training champions. How is it different? What are the other ingredients you need to have as a coach to be a part
Absolutely.
of
So,
the
I think
champion?
Yeah. I think in order to get there, Sal, what it takes more than anything is someone's ability to follow measurable planning. So,
Hmm.
when someone comes to me and they say, "I want to be a champion," well, what does that mean? You got to set out a plan. And many times, if you're training for the Olympics, it's a 10-year plan. So you're actually mapping out month after month after month for first year, month after month after month for second year, and you're meeting these benchmarks. So being able to plan and being consistent and sticking with the plan is a superpower in the world of athletics. Think about Michael Jordan. Everybody talks about Michael Jordan. What often people don't realize is that he was an expert planner. He planned things out well beyond what people even
I did
realize.
not know that.
Yeah. Oh, he saw things well before. If you go into the world of entertainment, Jim Carrey, for example, the famous comedian from Canada,
Hmm.
he was a huge planner. He wrote himself a millions of dollars check
Yeah.
and said that, "Hey, I'm going to cash this, blah, blah, blah." That's planning. That's visualizing, having that forward thought, that knowledge.
Hmm.
Without having that as an athlete, you don't self actualize. You're not manifesting those things. So You have to come up with cues that allow you to stick with a plan. And I'll give you an example in my world of martial arts. We have when you step on the mat, so you're barefoot when you're competing in Olympic Taekwondo. With many of my athletes, we set up what I want to call preparedness measures. So we go through meditation and we talk about the minute that your foot touches the mat, that you change mindsets and you flip into this persona that you've developed that needs to be the champion, right? So you develop this over time and you start saying to yourself, okay, as soon as I step on that mat, it's amazing. This is what's going to happen, right? That's a part of developing the mindset. Going to the physical side of it, you came from a very similar generation. I'm a little bit older than you, I'm 50, but we come from the same generation. And that is, we were told whomever works the hardest is going to win.
Yeah.
Right? That's what we're told. Well, unfortunately, that is a lie. In the world of athletics, it's not about that. It's about putting the effort in the right place. That is the key. And when you're working with athletes or entrepreneurs, you're trying to figure out how to put the best effort in the best place. So with some athletes, that may mean we got to increase your cardiovascular respiratory stamina, or we need to increase your ability to handle the anxiety of being on a mat in front of thousands of people. The key is a good coach is able to recognize where those areas are and how to improve upon.
Yeah, it makes sense. When did that happen in your career? You were coaching athletes, and then it seems like there was a broader scope, right? With me, for example, so it seems like there is a emphasis on that longevity and going beyond that. When did it happen in your career, and maybe why?
Yeah, so I noticed it happened when I first started coaching people in the late 90s, and that's when science started becoming a lot more predominant in the athletic world. Again,
Hmm.
going back to our generation, whoever works the hardest, who runs the longest, who puts in the most work, right? And then science came along and said, wait a minute. And I've always been a big proponent of efficacy. So, you can have all kinds of plans and you can go based on what worked for this guy or this woman. But if it's not effective for you, it's a waste of energy, right? So in the late 90s, when science came along and was starting to really give us the whys behind everything, I dove in. I read everything I could find. I educated myself at the highest level you could. I wanted to know the why. And that is exactly what, in my opinion, creates a good coach or even a good entrepreneur. Everyone says it. What carries you through business? A lot of times it's curiosity, right? You got to be curious. How am I going to do better? Open your eyes to what's out there and what's, as opportunities are in front of you. It's the same thing for athletics. So I'm constantly on the lookout for the things that will give my athletes an edge. If I read anything that's even promising, I dig in and then I connect the dots. And that's when I realized I have a talent for this particular world of transformation because I like to read. I'm an information junkie. And I also like to study human behavior. So you connect those two things and you start doing some experimentation and you get success. And that's what happened over the course of 25 years for me. Through experimentation, I found all kinds of success. Also, we found failures. You're not going to experiment unless you're failing at some point. That is another big part of what you asked me in the beginning. What
Yeah.
creates a good athlete? This is kind of a thing that is going around the world of entrepreneurship. Be a failure, embrace failure, fail forward, all this and that. But it's
Yeah,
more than that.
I remember playing in '90s rugby, and you probably been there in early and mid '90s. It was a badge of honor, going with a broken ankle, taping it, being painkillers, and getting through another game, and just keep doing this. Right? My dad was a soccer player, and oh God, no, his teammates are pretty much many of them are almost like handicapped.
Yep,
It was
that's exactly right.
different times and different understanding of how you train.
Exactly. And it was the culture and the culture of that day in athleticism was
Yeah.
the harder, the better, the more pain, the better,
Yeah.
that whole mantra, but it ignored science. And that's where I had to check my ego in the late 90s. I'm like, look, I want to be different than these other guys. How do I do that? Check my ego, forget the macho, I'm going to push through the pain and all this and this and that.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, that means nothing when you're getting to the podium. If you're injured, you're not standing on top of a podium. And that's what I convinced many of the athletes that I worked with. I said, listen, we can do this the right way, or we can train your ego, because that's all you're doing right now. You're training your ego.
Yep. Yeah. Well, let's talk about longevity. So, most people, I think, don't think about their 60s or 70s. Before probably met you and what happened after my last triathlon, I had an idea that I'm going to keep training and getting ready for one race a year and keep doing it. But unfortunately, your body starts breaking down. And the ones that start researching that, it seems like coincidentally, it happens like in mid 40s. Oh,
Absolutely. Yeah, that seems to be.
so do you see that a lot with your clients? And maybe we can touch on what protocols people should start taking, when they're coming off maybe heavy training, or they've been training in the past a lot, and they have to reframe their philosophy and training a lot in general.
Yeah, great question. This is probably one of the most, I think, common questions I get in the entrepreneurial world, because what we're dealing with, Saul, as you know, are high performers. And most entrepreneurs that I know have some sort of high performing background in athletics in some way or another. Like if I talk to 9 out of 10 entrepreneurs, they would say, yeah, I was really into marathons for a long time and I was a pretty good runner, or I did Ironmans, or whatever it may be. At that point, you're high performers. So there's a shift of mindset, and this is the taming of the ego. And I will have to preface that I'm a practicing Stoic. So I very much adhere to the Stoic philosophies, and they have helped me deal with my own mortality. Because as we age, we have to let go of the idea that we are going to perform the same way we did in our teens, 20s, and 30s. Now, the difference is we can perform more optimally now if we do it smart. And what I mean by optimally is not based on standards that society says, but standards based on our own biology. Like that's what we should be focused on. Like, what is my optimal biological function? Like where am I at? That is one of the hardest things to convince clients, because they're stuck on what's this guy doing next to me, or what did I do 10 years ago? So my first thing is getting them to tame their ego, number one. Two, start doing the things they need to do based on the data that is custom to them. And that comes from all the tests that we've talked about doing in the past, understanding where your benchmarks, your baselines are, so that you can perform where you need to be, not where society tells you to be.
Yeah, that makes sense. Do you want to touch on, and I believe, for many of the listeners, that will be the first thing they heard, especially as you know, many of them are entrepreneurs or successful real estate operators. For me, it was changing my scoreboard, trying still to beat my PR or get a better time since I was in 2020, 21. And I'm talking about in context of longevity. Can you give us
Yeah.
2 or 3 KPIs? There's probably 10 of them,
Yeah.
right? But 2 or 3 that
Yeah.
actually has to become your scoreboard moving forward, and call it in 50s, 60s, and 70s if you want to still have called athletic body and athletic vitality. What are those?
Absolutely. Before I go into those 3 things, I want to say one thing. If I asked you the question, what and how do you want to be living when you're 90, what would you tell me?
Every week, I read hundreds of commercial real estate articles from across the U.S. and around the world. I connect the signals, break down the Fed moves, and share real case studies, not theory, from my 2 decades of real estate experience and actively doing deals right now. My team and I spend 15 plus hours on a weekly basis and deliver this to you for free. You can read it in 5 minutes. So every Sunday at 9:07 a.m., you'll get major commercial real estate news that matters, one Fed insights that matters, one deep dive case study from me or one of our operators who already made the mistakes, so you don't have to. Thousands of commercial real estate operators and investors read this newsletter, especially in the value add space. And don't take my word for it. Check out hundreds of reader testimonials online. Plus, when you subscribe, you get instant access to a Performer underwriting tool, the same one we use every single day to underwrite value add deals. Now, this is not for you if you're looking to get rich quick schemes, or if you're looking for theory and hallucinations, not real numbers, or you're not serious about commercial real estate. But if you want real tactics, real deals, real results, no bait and switch, go to joinvaluebuilder.com and subscribe for free. And see you there, guys. I want to live without pains. I want to have flexibility, mobility, and energy and vitality. Meaning, I want to be easy in my body. I don't necessarily want to beat my records, but I want to get up and go. And I want to play multiple sports and still enjoy active life.
Exactly. So that's longevity. You just described health span. There's a difference between health span and lifespan.
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately, many of the goals that we have, and I'm going to go into the KPIs and the benchmarks here in a second, aren't aligned with that. In fact, they're on the other side. They're somewhere over here or over there. Most of the people that I talk to say, I want to be able to bench press 270 or 300. I want to squat, blah, blah, blah. These things absolutely mean nothing in the grand scheme. Now, they're obviously having lean muscle mass and power is important, but the benchmarks that we're setting aren't realistic to what we're wanting to achieve. The biggest KPI at the end of the day is I want to be able to live optimally whenever I'm in my 90s. I want to live as long as I can. That's the ultimate podium. And not only live as long as I can, but live optimally as long as that's health span, right? So if we were to sit back right now and say, let's get some goals, I would say if I have 20 men in front of us, none of them would say that. None of them would say, I want to live the longest health span as healthy as I can so I can spend time with my family and do all the things I wanted to do in this life. Hardly any would say that. Most of them would say, I'd like to get to 50 without XYZ. I'd like to get to 60 and be able to not have this or do that. That's where there's a misalignment. And where you align those things are the three things I'm going to tell you. The first one is obviously the most important, in my opinion, and that's going to be where your resting heart rate is, one, and then your VO2 max, and then your HRV. And these are the things that we focus on. Now, we're trying to optimize those metrics because unless you have major complications, any health history with disease or whatever, those three metrics are going to move the needle. I think is in the close fourth place is going to be lean muscle mass or body composition, right? It's very, very important. Most people aren't even paying attention to their VO2 max or their resting heart rate. If I asked many people when I consult with them in the beginning, hey, what's your resting heart rate? I don't know. Well, heart disease is the leading killer for men in the world, right? So if you're trying to stay alive, it shouldn't be, I need to beat this guy in an Ironman. It should be, I need to beat myself into doing the things I need to do to get my metrics moved in this direction. So most people look at those metrics and think that they're so out of the norm that they're not tangible, but they're very tangible. And I would ask you, based on the time that you've worked with me, how have they become more tangible to you?
Well, just because I'm more aware, right? I have my HRV and VO2 max just on my screen. And before that, I would check my VO2 max at the DEX scan place maybe once or twice a year. And right now, I just have it. You're just more aware. And as an entrepreneur running the business, what you focus expands. And no matter what, if you're looking at it on a regular basis, you will expand because you naturally want to improve that number.
Exactly. And that's how entrepreneurs are. So numbers work well with entrepreneurs in my experience. And that's why it's primarily outside of maybe 10% of my business, my niche, because I relate to them because I've been an entrepreneur all my life. Now, let's take it. You have those three things. Now, this is where the gap is very difficult for most people to close. Okay, how do I do it? How do I move the needle? Because most entrepreneurs know profitability models inside and out. If I asked you, hey, how do I make a parking lot profitable tomorrow?
Yeah, I know
you could break it down like it was nothing. You tell me, boom, 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 boom. You give me an essay on it. If I said, how would you take the same model and tell me how effective you can make your lifestyle in order to improve those three metrics? You would go, Chris, tell me.
Yeah.
Right?
It would probably, I would do more cardio. I would lose weight, and I'm gonna have a better diet. But that's very in general, right? It's really not
That's
attacking.
surface.
that's
Absolutely.
not
Yeah.
attacking. Yeah, exactly. Whatever
Yeah.
we need to attack.
And you would never approach your entrepreneurial life the same way. You wouldn't be as general. You wouldn't say, well, Chris, in order to make that parking lot profitable, do these three general things and you're
Yeah,
going to do great. You would never say that to
exactly.
me. Right.
No,
So that's why
no.
being super nuanced and saying, okay, how does this work for you? That's difficult. And that's why in the world of wellness consulting that I'm in, it's hard work because
Hmm.
every person you work with has a distinctive customized approach. You're so much different than this guy. And
Hmm.
figuring out how your lifestyle works so that we can bring in this effective model, it's difficult. And we experiment with that. Like in the time I've worked with you, Sal, we've tried many things. Some
Yep.
things worked,
Yeah,
some
and
things
we're still
didn't work.
trying, and we're still
Exactly. And we're
trying.
still going, still hammering away.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's the whole point of this. You would never, ever give up on a profitability model. You wouldn't say, nah, I can't find it. There's no solution there. Why do we do it with our health? We never get it. I'm done with this. That's what I deal with clients because I'm like, guys, we need to sit back, take a deep breath. Let's go back to the drawing board, but let's use data. And that's where we're in a place now, Sal, where we've never been. Like today, we have so much data to work with, but people get overwhelmed by it. And that's where I usually come into play when I work with clients. I bring all the data and say, how do we translate this into a better lifestyle for you? And it comes down to just what you enjoy doing. Like I could
Hmm.
tell you, Sal, hey, let's go play badminton. You'd look at me like, no. Even if I told you that badminton would burn X amount of calories and it would be great for your health, you'd say, no, it's not, that's not fast enough for me. I'm a person that's used to boom, 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 boom. So making that kind of connection with clients in the entrepreneurial world is the same as picking the niche of business of real estate you want to be in, whether it's commercial, whether it's residential, whether it's parking lots, it's the same thing. And what I try to do with my clients, especially the entrepreneurs, is connect the dots so they can see, listen, Sal, you're doing amazing with this entrepreneurial stuff. Here's the same model for your health. Let's build on that.
Yeah, it's interesting, and this all health industry is just built very, very, I would say, backwards, right? There's a lot of mass videos, and mostly is focused on losing weight, and a lot of times losing muscle or improving diet, and which is not necessarily most of the time it's not going to work as a blank slate. So the question is, how do you scale that? How do you scale Chris to everyone? Because it's really customizable. Even if it's not a champion, but it has to be customizable for each and everyone.
Absolutely. So the way that I scale what I'm doing right now is as I get better and because of AI. AI has changed a lot. I'm sure it has in the real estate world as well. When you guys are scouting or you're getting data, whatever it may be, AI has changed everything. So it used to take me anywhere between 3 to 5 hours to build a plan off of surface level information that I got from Saul. So you give me the information, you say, this is where I'm at, this is all my data. What can you do for me? 3 to 5 hours just to get a surface of what we should be thinking about. In 3 seconds, I can have a 5-year plan if I have all the data because of AI. So now AI has it's given me the opportunity to almost clone myself because I'm able to take data faster and translate it to what needs to be done. Now, the hard part is you'll never be able to scale or replicate the relationship that I build with Saul. Like we have a great relationship, good rapport. I never want to try to scale that. I never want to. And it sounds crazy because in the business world, it's all scale, scale, scale.
Exactly.
That's the part that I find passionate. Like, this is my passion. I could go until I was 102 years old doing exactly what I'm doing right now. And so I'm happy with that. Right. But there are other parts that I scale. There's the IP that I have that I scale, but the relationships that I build, I never want to scale because they're unique to me. I have a capacity. I have about 60 to 70 clients that I can work with at a time. Otherwise, I'm spreading myself way too thin on the relationship plateau.
Interesting. You just mentioned about 102. I'm just curious. You mentioned you've been in Dan Sullivan's group, and you probably went to the exercise once when he put us in the future, and and then eventually through the exercise we had to pick what's going to be our how long we're going to live at. What was that
Yeah.
number? I remember for me it was 120. Did you
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
was your number?
It was interesting because when I was in 10X with Dan Sullivan, great group, by the way, strategic
Yeah.
coach, would highly recommend it. I love that group. When I was in there, I had a different approach because I know all the science, not all of it.
Hmm.
I know a lot of the science because I'm reading it daily. So it was a little far fetched. When I'm hearing, Dan's up there saying, hey, don't be shy, put 150 if you, you don't want to be 150.
Yeah.
I was looking at it more from a scientific approach today, right? So people question me like, Chris, you're the longevity guy. Why did you put 100? It should be 150, 100. I said, because with today's technology, based on the life I've already lived, had I started with today's technology back when I was 18, whole different ball game, right? But my number was I stayed with 100. Like I was like, if I can live to be 100, it's a victory for me. It's a win, But
Right.
it's not about that. The number, I don't get caught up on the number because it's the health span. Like I want to have this going when I'm 95. I want
Exactly.
to avoid neurodegenerative disease as much as possible. So when people see, because you know this, you've been out to eat with me and you've spent some time with
Hmm.
me at a retreat. I live all this. There's not a single thing that I'm telling clients to do that I'm not doing. That's the 100% guarantee. It's gotten me into a little bit of trouble because when people in the past have said, Chris, I need you to train me for an ultra marathon. My mindset is, well, I got to go run an ultra marathon because I can't train this person unless I've been through it. So
Mm.
I'm that guy. I've done all the stuff because I want to be able to relate. I tried to do it as safely and as educated as possible. But at the end of the day, I know that there are limitations on me biologically. Like right now, my biological age is 32 based on all the tests.
Wow.
Obviously, my chronological age is 50. But understand, I haven't had alcohol my entire life, right? I live a very clean life. And it's not to say that you have to be doing those things. Genetics plays a huge role. And that's going into the fourth thing that I would say for KPI. If you're not getting a genetic sequencing test done in 2025, you're missing out on a gold mine of health and wellness information. I
Yeah,
always recommend it.
which we're doing soon.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm pushing you right now. That's where we're moving into it because I found out, I've told this story to you, but I'll tell it to the viewers here. I found out 4 years ago after doing genetic sequencing that I have hemochromatosis, which changed everything for me because my diet was 180 shift. I can't eat red meat as much because inflammation and my ferritin levels. It's important to establish a healthy relationship with your doctor. Like this is one thing that men, we're so guilty of this, Sal. We're
Yeah.
like, I'm good. I don't need to go to the doctor. I feel good. I can bench press 225 10
Hmm.
times. Why do I need a doctor? Right. That's
Yes.
the worst mindset in today's day and age because we're missing out on so much data, preventative data that would help us. When I can convince many of my male clients to even just go get a blood test, that's a victory in and of itself because you'd be surprised how many haven't had a blood test done in 5 years, 10 years. You'd be shocked. They're out there living thinking I'm going to die when I'm supposed to die. And it's like, you would never treat your business that way. You wouldn't treat your car that way.
Right. Wow. That so much wisdom here and so much nuggets. Really appreciate, Chris. Normally, I like to finish with a question, and you have a pass if that's too personal. But if you talk to 16-year-old Chris, what would be the best advice to that Chris right now?
Yeah, 16-year-old Chris would have been told, pay attention to the formative years of developing your diet. I am admitted sugar addict because when I was growing up, I had access to Little Debbie's and all these snacks that, I could only afford at a quarter, for those things. The dietary habits that you form between the ages of 12 and 17 are typically the ones you will have for the rest of your life, unless you've had some sort of major intervention into your dietary habits. And I'm going to tell you, it's harder every decade. When I work with 20-year-olds that are changing their diet, it's much easier than 30-year-olds. Working with 30-year-olds, it's much easier than 40-year-olds. It's the habit science. It gets harder when the habit is deeply, deeply ingrained. So I would tell myself, enjoy food, but be better and more responsible in what it is you're fueling your body with. Because I was an athlete. I was a world-class athlete in my teens to my early 20s, but I was eating and fueling myself with garbage because I didn't know. You're like, I'm good. I'm winning. I'm winning and I'm eating cheeseburgers and fries afterwards and I'm good. But what you don't know is how great you could have been had you done some of those things better.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. I didn't know most habits form between 12 and 17.
Absolutely. And that's why as parents, and we've had this conversation, so as parents, I believe outside of spirituality, which is something I don't obviously delve in, that teaching our children nutritional habits is the single most important thing we can do in their lives. Absolutely. Because they can do everything else right and be dead at 40.
Yeah. Amazing.
That's the
Yeah, for
reality.
sure.
And it's not to take the joy away from life. There are many, many foods we can have and enjoy without having this, what I would obviously everyone calls the standard American diet, SAD, right? You don't need that. And I don't want to get into a preachy ending here and saying, eat this, eat that. That's never been my style. It's finding enjoyment in the foods that are right for you.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I do have that battle too.
We're brothers in arms in that one, my friend, because I struggle with sugar every single day. And I'll tell you, the thing that works for me best, Sal, is this: treat your house as your fortress. Guard it with your life. Do not let the enemy in. I don't put any of those things in my house. I enjoy them outside of my house. But if I have those things in my house, they call my name 24/7 and they will find me.
I know. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And we just need to get on board every family member on the same path,
Yep.
which is another challenge by itself. Now, Chris, where my listeners can find you if they want to connect with you, if you want to start coaching or get advice, or just simply connect, what's the best way to connect with you?
Absolutely. Easiest way is going to be my website. It's www.ngfit.com. ngfit.com. Easy. And obviously you can see me on socials. I'm on Facebook at Chris Hershberger. I'll even leave my phone number. I'll put this out there because I'm a big believer in texting and that kind of thing. 419-295-7886. If you have questions, need a little consultation on how to get your life moving in the right direction with wellness, I love helping people transform.
Thank you very much, Chris. That was a pleasure. And looking forward for our next conversation. And we'll talk to you next week.
Yes, sir. Have a great day. Good to see you.
You've been listening to the Value Builder Podcast. For more strategies, stories, and episodes, head to valuebuilder.co or subscribe on your favorite app. Always make it better than you found it and keep adding value. See you in the next one.